podcast. The Heidelcast.
So the AME Church is the first institution built by black people.
Yeah.
For black people. So there's still some energy in it, and there's still the political connection in it, even though we don't use the leverage the correct way. And for me, I'm a small C conservative, and I want to maintain the institution that did so much good for us.
The opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or its advertisers. Listener discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. And now, Scott Clark.
How are your March Madness brackets going?
Don't listen to the radio anymore.
I still am a little confused as to why they need to see you podcast.
It's the Heidelcast, the podcast devoted to recovering Reformed theology, piety, and practice.
We're talking about practice. Not a game. We're talking about practice.
I'm a pastor and a church historian. This episode is for the week beginning Sunday, March 15th, 2026. We're brought to you by the Heidelberg Reformation Association. We exist to recover the Reformed confession and to help others discover it. We are at heidelbergreformationassociation.org. Email or send a voice memo to heidelcast@heidelblog.net.
At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Call or text the Heidel phone anytime at 760-618-1563. That's 760-618-1563.
Apple Podcast Comments.
Don't forget to subscribe in Apple Podcasts or in any podcast app and give us a 5-star rating in your pod app so that others can find the Heidelcast. Remember, we're now on YouTube at Heidelcast, where you can see our newest feature, Heidel Video. We're also at heidelblog.net /heidelvideo. Don't forget to check out the Heidel shop at heidelblog.net/SHOP.
Guess what? I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Oh, thank you for the cowbell. We really need more cowbell.
We are taking a brief break from our Philippians series to talk with my dear friend and one of my favorite writers, Wendell Talley. Stay tuned. We'll return to Philippians next week.
The best podcast, the Heidelcast.
Wendell Talley, welcome to the Heidelcast, or welcome back to the Heidelcast.
Dr. Clark, it's great to be with you here in this impressive studio.
Well, it's a joy to have you here, and it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. I think we met. Where did we meet? Someplace.
Some terrible restaurant in the Gas Lamp District.
Oh, well, yeah, that was the first time.
Years ago. But
most recently, I saw you at
about a year ago.
Chick-fil-A.
No, a year ago on the campus.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
A year ago on the campus.
All right, very good. So I met you by reading you, and I don't remember how I found you.
Well, I found you because way back in the dial-up internet days, I was so disturbed by a particular church. Well, not by the church, but some of the things going on in it. I was thinking, I'm going to have to leave this church, right? They were, it was during the open theism days. Remember that? And I started reading this guy, the Internet Monk.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I remember that.
Who fought with everybody all the time.
Yeah.
That guy could keep 20 arguments going at once. It was amazing. So I'm reading the Internet Monk, and so I'm living right outside Washington, D.C. at the time. And he says, well, if you want to hear good preaching, click here. So I clicked, and it ended up being Capitol Hill Baptist, Mark Dever's church.
Dever, yeah.
And, so from there, I'm like, okay. So I said, maybe, we'll start going to Capitol Hill Baptist. And I thought it was a pretty good recommendation. And then somehow you were on his website. He was quoting you, or he had a link to the old Heidel blog, right? And I started reading it, and that was kind of like my gateway drug into the Reformed world. They used to tease Pastor Dever. He used to say that Capitol Hill Baptist was the gateway drug to Presbyterianism. And then a few years later, after joining his church, and I ended up joining a Presbyterian church, I sent him a note saying, unfortunately, I got news for you. I am now in the Presbyterian world. So it turned out to be true. And you had an article up. I was reading through the article, And you had a note in one of your blog posts that said, for all my Baptist friends who wonder why Abraham circumcised Ishmael, click here.
Yeah.
And at the point, I had several people in my ear at the time say, oh, covenant baptism, got to baptize your babies, brother. And I'm like, I don't see it, right? And I clicked, I read it, and I got it.
Yeah.
Instantly. And I reached out to you to thank you for it. And then I think we had a correspondence there. And then, I've had many different blog iterations for you internet sleuths out there. I mean, you can go find me. I don't know. There's probably still stuff out there under Lester Cahill. That was my pen name.
Sure.
When I worked in the corporate world, I used my pen name,
Sure.
Lester Cahill, to avoid the corporate censors and to not lose my job. And
it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Archive.org is the thing.
Yeah. So there's probably a lot of stuff out there for Lester Cahill. I don't think I wrote under any other names I can think of right now, but Lester was my main one. And then, then we just started corresponding from there and, reading the Heidel blog, all the information you put out, all the articles you put out has just been super helpful for me.
It's true. It's funny. I was getting ready to go somewhere. Barb said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to meet a guy I met on the internet. Which was technically true. It was a little misleading. But So that's the weird thing about the internet, And then I guess people call it now meeting your mutuals.
Yeah, meeting your mutuals. Yeah, we met IRL in real life.
Yes, exactly. Wendell's one of the contributors to the first thing that the Heidelberg Reformation Association ever published, which we haven't distributed. We'll probably make work of that because we're moving towards doing some print publishing. And so we should figure out a way to make this available more widely. But it's a little pamphlet we put together that includes the piece I did years ago on the Heidel blog, Covenant Theology is Not Replacement Theology. And then the middle piece is by Wendell Talley, You're a Presbyterian. How did that happen? And then a wonderful piece by Tony Phelps, Grace for Parents of Prodigals. And we first published this in 2022. We reprinted it once since, but we haven't done it for a while. So probably when we get figured out how we're going to do things going forward, we have a piece in the works now. We're doing that one way, and then we're probably going to have to figure out another process for doing things more quickly. But at any rate, that might actually be on the Heidel blog.
You might have to update it as well because I have moved on from the Presbyterian world.
And we're going to talk about that. So I think if you go to heidelblog.net/contributors, you can see that from Wendell. So it's a great story. So that gets us to where I wanted to go. So you were raised in the AME.
I was.
And so I know a little bit. I don't know a lot, but I know a little bit about the AME. But I'm guessing a lot of our listeners don't have a deep knowledge of the AME. So what is that?
AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Okay. It's an old church.
It is an old church, 1789.
Yeah, by American standards.
It really didn't get incorporated or allowed to become a church. It had to go through several court cases in the state of Pennsylvania to get its independence from the Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And that was 1815, I want to say, 1816, somewhere in there. I'm sure people can check my dates.
Episcopalians were not anxious to let go
of it. It was Methodist Episcopal, the American branch of the Methodist Church, but it was Episcopal church government. Sure. St. George's Episcopal in Philadelphia. There was a pastor there named Richard Allen.
Yeah. Well, that's the founding father.
Founding father of the AME Church. Richard Allen was born a slave. We believe, this part is a little sketchy, we believe he actually served in George Washington's Revolutionary Army. It's kind of like in logistics, moving things from here to there.
Okay.
He was born a slave. He had 5 siblings, didn't know his father. 3 of his siblings were sold to other plantations. And he, an older brother and older sister, ended up with a slave owner in New Jersey. Richard becomes a Christian. His brother becomes a Christian. And at the time, slave owners were told, don't let your slaves become Christians because they'll stop working. So Richard he and his brother were very keen on proving that wrong.
Yeah.
So they doubled their efforts. They did even more than they were being asked to do so as to not prove that slander to be true. He was allowed to learn how to read and write. So his master was so impressed by what they were doing, he started allowing Richard to contract himself out. And he did, and he took that money and bought the freedom for himself. You know, he bought manumission for himself, his brother, and his sister. But before he did that, his master started becoming very curious, a man last name Chu, about Christianity. He was not a believer. And he started allowing Richard to bring pastors to his home to preach, to talk about Jesus. And eventually his master was converted, and that's when he started allowing Richard to work and then buy his freedom. It was a band of Methodists that he was going to Methodist meetings. He eventually becomes a circuit pastor in the Methodist church. He walked everywhere. He was known as a walking pastor. So he covered New Jersey, Delaware, parts of Pennsylvania. He's called to preach at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church in Philadelphia. He preached 5 times a day.
Wow.
He would go to where the blacks worked or gathered. You had a mixture of free blacks and slaves, and he would go and preach. He'd preach in parks. He'd preach at the docks. He'd preach wherever he could. He preached 5 times a day. He grew the black congregation at St. George's to a substantial number. So there was him, Richard, and there was a gentleman named Absalom Jones. They worked together at St. George's. They were pastors there. And there were, I want to say, close to 90 black folks going to St. George's. They started a society called the Free African Society, where it was a mutual aid society. So if you lost your job, got hurt, couldn't work, or something happened, you know, all the members had to contribute money. And each month they would, like, if somebody, you know, some tragedy struck or something happened, it was kind of like an insurance, social insurance, right? Yeah. And, you know, one of the requirements for becoming a member was your misfortune couldn't be your doing. So if you were in trouble because you were out drinking and you were slapping around your wife or whatever, you were not eligible. So they had the Free African Society. They were members of St. George's. And then there came a fateful day where before service, Richard was up front praying. Absalom Jones was praying, and some of the other black members were praying. Well, the church had segregated itself. They had built a balcony. The blacks had to sit in the balcony. They could no longer sit with the whites. And there was concern about how many black people were coming to the church. And so this is Methodist origin story. This is the AME origin story right here. So Richard is praying, Absalom's praying, and they're forcibly removed from the altar. Like, you can't pray here.
Oh, wow.
You must not pray here. And they pulled them off their knees, and they left. They said, okay, well, we won't trouble you any longer. And they left. And that's kind of, you know, in a nutshell, the start of the AME church. Richard took his own money. He bought a blacksmith shop. So if you look at the AME website, our icon is a cross and an anvil, because we got our start in a blacksmith shop.
Okay.
Eventually, he started a church, Bethel. It's called Mother Bethel AME in Philadelphia.
There are a lot of Bethel AMEs.
Yeah, Mother Bethels in Philadelphia. George Washington even contributed to its construction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Clark.
There was a yellow fever outbreak in Philadelphia. Everybody left town that could, and Richard and Absalom stayed, and Richard was burying people out of his own pocket. He hired nurses. He attended to people. He won a citation from the mayor of Philadelphia for his work during the plague outbreak. He did not leave. This is the kind of guy he was. They were accused later of stealing money or doing all these things, and him and Absalom wrote a defense of themselves, and it's the very first copyrighted published work by black people in the United States. His defense of what he did during the yellow fever outbreak.
Do you think we could find that online?
You probably can.
What's the?
I don't remember the title of it.
But if you look for Richard Allen.
Yeah, yellow fever, Philadelphia, 1792, 95, somewhere in there.
You go to books.google.com and type in Richard Allen defense, something like that. You'll find it.
You'll probably find it. So they were commended for that. So the names are escaping me, but a lot of our founding fathers knew Richard Allen.
Sure.
And where all of this happened, St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church, all of this took place literally 6 blocks away from Constitution Hall.
Oh, interesting.
So the year that this is happening, the country is meeting to form a constitution. So this is all in the air. Also in the air, too, at that time was Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks, we overlook the impact that he had as one of the first martyrs in the American Revolutionary War. But for Black America, it was a huge deal. News spread slower at that time. But Crispus Attucks, you know, his his courage and dying, one of the first, if not the first person to die on behalf of American freedom. They're in Philadelphia. They're writing a constitution, and you're telling us we can't even pray at this church. All of that is in the air. So that is the founding ethos of the AME church. And Richard went in his pocket and paid for this stuff.
Interesting.
So he and Absalom Jones separated. Absalom Jones ended up starting an Episcopal church, and Richard went and started Methodist Episcopal Church. And that is the start of it. And he was the guy. He was, the AME church was mainly Baltimore, Philly, New York, Boston. He was elected the first bishop of the church. He convened the first National Convention of Blacks. It was held in Philadelphia, 1830. Yeah, he very influential. Started the very first really Black organization in the United States. W.E.B. Du Bois, he writes, and he's not a Christian, right? So if you get a book called The Philadelphia Negro, which I commend to everyone, Du Bois calls the AME Church the greatest, most impressive accomplishment of Negro civilization when Du Bois was writing that in 1901.
So people need to understand that for a long time, the AME was kind of a social glue. It plays a foundational role in Black society in America.
Absolutely.
Obviously there are Black Baptist churches and Pentecostal churches eventually and others, but no church, no denomination is more fundamental to Black life than the AME.
Yeah, we were the largest denomination for a long time by number. Still one of the most influential, just because we've always been a political church. It's just has always been that case. Yeah, so that is the genesis of the church. I think I don't know, maybe some people would be surprised, stereotypically Blacks are associated with the Baptist church, but historically that's not true. We're typically Methodists or Presbyterians. I think the oldest Black church in Mississippi was the Lutheran church.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I only knew that because it burned down a few years ago, and I was surprised to read that. But
see, the Lutherans are the quiet group. Nobody.
Right.
I mean, if you don't go look for Lutheran history, it will not come to you.
I love the Lutherans.
Yeah.
Shout out to all you Lutherans out there. I love you guys.
Because when you were in
the Midwest, I went to some Lutheran churches, and what was crazy about it was the AME liturgy and the Lutheran liturgy. A lot of overlap and similarity, which I would never have guessed in a million years.
That's interesting.
When we do it, so that's another story. But the church spread south after the Civil War, and there's another guy that there's 3 or 4 foundational bishops in the AME church that I think people should know about, and the man most responsible for bringing it south is Henry McNeil Turner. There's a book that folks can get, maybe you'll throw on your website. I really recommend it for people to read. He was probably he was the most influential Black churchman in the 19th century. In the 19th century, you know how we put everything on a Mount Rushmore. The Mount Rushmore Black leadership in the 19th century would have been Booker, Frederick.
So say the full name.
Oh, Booker T. Washington.
Yeah, thank you. Not everybody knows now.
That's true. That's
people
true.
are not being taught this stuff anymore.
Look, I've met 20-year-olds who didn't know who Jesse Jackson
I've had
that.
to explain what World War II was. So that's why you can't assume. So Booker T. Washington, who's an absolutely foundational character, well, in American history, 19th century American history, but also for Black America.
Yeah, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, who I hope you've heard of.
Again, one of the most important figures in American history.
And Henry McNeil Turner. Now, we've lost Turner to history, but 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, he was one of the guys. One of the guys.
And all devout Christians.
Yes.
Right? People don't know that. So if you study Black history, you will run into Frederick Douglass right away, but it's not always or even regularly reported that he was a devout Christian who came to faith and was fervent about his faith.
Absolutely.
Which was one of the things that fueled his work.
Yeah.
Right? He's not just an activist, he's a Christian who's seeking to live out his faith relative to these obviously very pressing issues. Same thing with Booker, right? Booker T. Washington is a genius, builds institutions, he sort of gets overshadowed in the 1960s. But until the rise of the Black Power movement, where they were a little bit embarrassed about Booker, he's a huge figure and a devout Christian. And then the one history's forgotten is an AME figure.
Henry McNeil Turner. People really should read about him. He actually took the church to Africa, to the Caribbean, all across the South. He built the Republican Party, or helped to build the Republican Party in Georgia.
Yeah.
He called them Lincoln Clubs. You couldn't call it like a GOP meeting, not in Georgia, not in 1870, right? That was not going to happen.
Right. So young person, if you're listening, you think of the South as largely Republican, but that's a relatively new thing that happened. And there's disagreement about why it happened, but it's a thing that you see really developing in the 1980s and to some degree in the 70s, but really in the 80s and 90s. But for a very long time, the South was Democrat, right?
Yes.
And so if you were Black in America, you were a Republican until, well, probably statistically until the 1960s.
Yeah, there's a good chance you were up till 60, for sure, until the 20s or 30s.
Jackie Robinson was a Republican till late in his life when he got frustrated.
Right.
I mean, things start to go south when Teddy Roosevelt has Booker to the White House, and then when that comes out, he gets a lot of flack and then doesn't have him back, and that damages the Black perception of the Republican Party.
Right, and not to get too far afield, but the Lily White Project that Hoover started in the 20s, because the heads of the state parties in the South were Black men.
Yes.
And so Hoover started the Lily White Project. That's what it was called, the Lily White Project, to remove the Black heads of the party, because the Republican Party didn't want to be seen as the Black party. It wasn't going to get votes in the South.
And that's such a good idea. I mean, I'm being sarcastic, right? Because now Republicans are happy if they get, 15% of the Black. Trump does as well or better than any Republican politician since probably Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
Amazing. That's how fortunes changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose Eisenhower did pretty well.
He did okay.
Nixon actually didn't do horribly, but things are going downhill.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Nixon, but maybe Eisenhower for sure. Yeah, so
that's amazing. That's so interesting.
Henry McNeil Turner also held office. Yeah. So after Reconstruction, a lot of Blacks were voted in office because for a short time Blacks could vote. And he held office until he was turned out, until they were like, we're going to just not do this, right? So we're going to revert to as close to slavery as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And so he's turned out of office. He held office. Any listeners have watched the movie Glory about the first Black soldiers to fight in the Civil War. One of the reasons you have Black soldiers enlisting and being allowed into the Union Army was because of Henry McNeil Turner. He agitated for this. He was a pastor of a Metropolitan AME church in Washington, D.C., which is just a few blocks from the White House. And he was a political animal, and he lobbied Lincoln, Seward, people in Lincoln's administration to allow Blacks to fight. And on the other side of that coin, he was writing and preaching and saying, Black men, you need to go fight for your freedom.
Well, Black clergy.
Black AME clergy in Baltimore and D.C. were pushing very hard for Lincoln to allow Blacks into the Union Army.
So in the Black community, clergy are, again, really important socially, culturally, but also politically. So that's almost from the very beginning, Black clergy have played a significant role in Black politics in America.
Right.
Advocacy for civil rights, et cetera.
Right. So the protest era of Black politics was housed in the church.
Yeah, you wrote that recently on your Substack. What is your Substack?
The Salon at 5th and Broadway.
Yeah. So he's had lots of iterations.
I have. Right now it's called the Salon at 5th and Broadway. I'm going to leave it there. That's where my mom met my father, at 5th and Broadway in downtown Los Angeles.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
I'm a romantic at heart. And I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that as the name of. I'm not changing it.
Okay.
The Salon at 5th and Broadway. Subscribe. Go ahead and pay a couple of dollars for a poor man.
I recommend it. As I said, Wendell is, and this isn't hyperbole. He is one of my favorite writers. I'm subscribed to a lot of stuff. Well, I'm actually, frankly, in the business or unsubscribing to a lot of stuff right now.
Heidelcast.
But I am not unsubscribing to Wendell.
Thank you.
Because I always read. That's one of the things I do. Whenever he bothers to podcast, I listen to his podcast too, because I always learn things. I don't know what the state of your podcast is, but what is the name of it?
I'm gonna bring it back. So let's not even. I had a pretty good one going for a while called the Black History Fashion Show.
Yes, okay.
I am going to bring back the Black History Fashion Show.
Okay,
all right.
So it's out there. You didn't take it. You didn't.
No, it's still there. I'm going to start redoing some episodes.
Okay,
and I have some really good equipment thanks to Dr. Clark now, and I'm going to start. Hopefully, to sound much better, and I'm going to bring back the Black History Fashion Show.
The audio quality isn't fantastic.
No, it's terrible, but
but it's great stuff. I mean, this is a case where the content is so good that nobody cares.
So yeah, I'm going to do Black History Fashion Show. That's going to come back, and it's exclusive breaking news here.
What's the breaking news?
The Black History Fashion Show podcast will return.
Okay.
Summer of 2026.
All right. Yeah, Lord willing.
Lord willing, yes. Let me add that. Let me hasten to add that.
Okay,
so
very good.
What I was saying about Henry McNeil Turner or Bishop Turner, so he's lobbying the government. He is telling black men, this is your duty to do this. If you want respect, you need to go fight.
Yeah.
Eventually, black soldiers are admitted into the Union Army. Then he joins the Army himself as a chaplain. He takes a bunch of spellers and readers with him.
These are books.
Little primers, little books, because the guys joining are illiterate. So he's praying, he's preaching, he's teaching them to read and write. He taught hundreds, if not thousands of soldiers, got their literacy from Henry McNeil Turner. He almost dies. Forget what he caught. Pox or something. He almost dies while in Virginia and while he's in Sherman's army. And he put his money where his mouth was. All right. He went and he served as a chaplain.
If you're black in America in the 19th century, even if you're in the North, what's your legal status?
Not a citizen.
Not a citizen.
So the fugitive slave law saw to that.
So you can't vote.
Right.
And you can't, owning property and doing things that we would consider just ordinary, normal things. And still, as sort of excluded people, are signing up to fight for the Union Army.
You're subject to being kidnapped as well and taken south.
Because if you get caught, right, in a conflict, they could capture you and then...
Well, before the war, I mean, you could be kidnapped.
Yeah, because that's the Fugitive Slave Act. So if a slave escaped from the South and was able to connect with the Underground Railroad, which wasn't literally underground, but figuratively, sometimes literally, but then make your way on foot largely at night to the North, you're better off than you were in the South, but you still don't have legal status necessarily. Now, if you got far enough west, if you got to Wyoming, right, the Wyoming Territory, places like that, then you're a little safer. Or if you made your way all the way to California, you're better off. But if you're in the North, then you're subject to being kidnapped and taken back south.
Right.
And punished and enslaved again.
Yeah. Frederick Douglass, his house, where's he? Rochester, New York, was launching station to go to Canada. A lot of the blacks in Canada are started in the States.
So there's a stop on the Underground Railroad just north of here in Temecula.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Which
Did
is,
not know that.
So there used to be Rancho California, and some people regard this part of San Diego County and that part of Riverside County as, sort of redneck territory. But in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. But it's interesting. You go to Temecula and there's a substantial black population, and sort of in the middle of nowhere, at least it's not nowhere now, but for a long time, Rancho California was hardly a dot. Why is this? Well, it was part of the Underground Railroad, part of the way people made their way to California.
There's an AME church there as well. Yeah, what was that, 5th or 6th grade? Guy from Fallbrook, which is North San Diego County, Tom Metzger, big Klansman, ran for House, what was it? I think it was a state representative seat. Yeah. So Henry McNeil Turner, towering figure in 19th century Christianity.
Sure.
19th century Black America. He pugnacious guy. Yeah. So if you read about, so Daniel Payne, Henry McNeil Turner, there's Richard Allen, there's a guy named Paul Quinn. Mm-hmm. Those people I think you should read about. There's not a lot of information about Paul Quinn. He was actually born in India. I believe his father was Egyptian and his mother was Spanish, or vice versa. They moved from India to London. He migrated from London to the United States. He joins the AME Church. He becomes a prolific church planter, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, I think even into some of the plain states like Kansas, starts a tremendous amount of churches, brings in a tremendous amount of people into the church. He becomes a bishop. He was a big guy. There are stories about him where, he's planting churches in areas where, it's not exactly a friendly area for an AME church had a reputation as like a troublemaking church. And there's stories about him, mobs coming into the church where he's preaching, and he steps out of the pulpit and just takes care of business, beats some dudes up, and then resumes his sermon and finishes, right? So he would take it to the parking lot if necessary before he gave you the benediction. So you might meet Jesus personally that day if you step to him.
I'm at the big game, and man, is it exciting. They don't call it March Madness for nothing. The best teams in the nation are playing their best ball of the season. It all comes down to 6 games. When it's all over, then what? What comes after the tournament, after the crowds are gone and the glory fades? At the Heidelberg Reformation Association, we believe in a glory that never fades. God's glory, and the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. You can help us point people to that unfading glory. Click on the donate button on the Heidel blog, or send a tax-deductible check to the Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027. Call or text now, 760-618-1563.
Okay, so you were raised in the AME in, L.A. Metro.
No, in Riverside County.
Riverside County.
Little church.
So
you learn a lot because AME churches are like do-it-yourself affairs almost.
Oh, interesting.
So I'll say a little bit about them. I'll start with theologically. It's Methodist.
Yeah.
At least when I was growing up.
So that means Wesleyan.
Now it's a hodgepodge. So I left the AME church. I was my mid to late 20s. And one of the last pastors I had there, because you get circuit pastors. Yeah. You may have a pastor for 1 year. He may be there 4 years, maybe there 6 years, right? And because they're reappointed year by year.
By a bishop. Who's kind of a regional manager.
Yeah. So where we are is the 5th district of the AME church. It covers basically Western United States plus Alaska. It's huge. And our conference is the Southern California Conference, which includes Vegas. So Vegas to Santa Barbara, basically.
Oh, wow.
And one of the last pastors I had in my 20s, just to tell you, you don't know what you're going to get. He leaves. No, I leave. And he gave me some books. Hey, Wendell, might want to read these. And I do remember some of his sermons sticking out to this day. And it was 10 years later. I still had the books. I hadn't read them. And I'm looking at the books. And I'm going, wait a minute, that's A.W. Pink. What? B.B. Warfield.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm reading, I'm like, those names would not have meant anything to me because by this time now, I'm kind of like, I've run into your writing and I'm starting to read more Reformed materials. I'm like, wait a minute, I know this name.
Yeah.
Why did that guy have those, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So he's maybe
like undercover
closet Reformed guy in AME.
Exactly. So depending on where you are and who's preaching, you might hear a very good sermon. You might. Last month, I was at a little church in Santa Ana, and he was preaching, and it could have been Scott Clark up there.
Yeah.
And there's other times you go, and you go, okay, like...
yeah, exactly.
What's the appropriate thing for me to do right now? Should I leave or no? So
we talk about the Seven Sisters of the Main Line, the big, tall steeple churches from the Main Line of Philadelphia, the PCUSA, the Episcopal Church USA, the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the Disciples of Christ, the UCC, and whatever the Baptist group is. I can never remember them. So those groups, and then you can think about the RCA, which is getting ever closer to the main line. Mm-hmm. And then I like to talk about borderline churches like the CRC, which maybe is heading back towards the sideline, and the EPC, which seems to be heading towards the main line. And then the sideline churches, which would be, the churches in the NAPARC world with which, you're familiar, the OPC, the PCA,
Right.
the URCs, and so forth. Where would you plot, based on your experience, your history, the AME? Is it mainline, borderline, sideline? How would you characterize it?
Uncomfortably mainline.
Okay.
And I'm going to say uncomfortably mainline because socially it's still very conservative.
Yeah.
The AME church has not signed up for the
sexual revolution.
No. Now it has female pastors.
Okay.
But officially, as a church body, it has not signed up for same-sex marriage. It has not signed up for any of that.
Yeah. So it's less wedded to the cultural, political left in America, even though in some ways, relative to NAPARC, it would be socially progressive, having female pastors.
Yes, absolutely.
And so probably a somewhat lower view of Scripture in some regards maybe than...
I wouldn't say it has a lower view of Scripture. It's very moralistic.
Oh, interesting.
Very moralistic. There's a few camps inside the church right now. And I came back on purpose. I want everyone to know that might have read me. Like, I came back on purpose.
That's what I wanted to talk
I didn't
about.
come back because I was thrown out of the Presbyterian world, although there's probably some folks over there that had the chance to throw me out, but I left on my own.
Just to establish your bona fides. So you, when you left the AME and you joined PCA...
I left AME. I was I was in the Baptist world for a bit.
Okay. But then you were in a PCA. And then you were in an OPC.
OPC.
And
I never joined, but I was attending a Lutheran church.
Okay.
Before I came home back to California.
How many years did you have in the NAPARC world?
Ooh, about 15, 16.
So you had a substantial experience. And you come back to LA and you said, I'm going to reconnect with the church of my youth.
Yeah. One of the reasons I came home was to do that.
Okay. Given your personal theological convictions, why was it so important for you to reconnect with the church of your youth?
Okay, so you've heard of white guilt?
Yeah.
There's black guilt.
Okay. You left your people.
Left them hanging.
Okay. Because the NAPARC world is overwhelmingly white.
Yeah, and it's guys like me, honestly, we're the problem.
You left the community.
I left, right? And
to go be successful.
To go get it, right? And that's what I'm 57.
Yeah. That's what you were supposed to do, right? You were supposed
That's what you were told to do. Go, all of this has happened these last few hundred years. Like, I'm the first generation in my family that was born with all of my rights that were codified. And I was the first generation born, I have the right to vote. I can do what I want.
You're born in 1968.
I'm born in 1968, right?
So
you're my age. The expectation is what are you going to do now?
Yeah. Now that you have what we were fighting for,
correct.
Go be successful.
Correct. And then you define success the way the world defines success, and that's the problem. And
that's the same with every immigrant group says to their children, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor, or whatever. So now finally, it's your time, right? After 200 years. Yeah. Now you can theoretically go do what you want to do. So you go to college, you go to Cal Baptist, and you
among other places, yeah.
And you go off into business. You do some writing, political work in the conservative political world, work in banking and fintech and all that stuff. And so now you're back in Riverside. Are you Riverside County or wherever?
Yeah, LA County is where the church is. So because I met Jesus at the AME church.
Yeah.
That's what I tell. That's where I met Jesus.
Sure.
Is the preaching great all the time? No, it's not. I had the realization because I just had this great desire to read all the creeds, all the confessions, to read all of the Reformation documents, basically, right? And even the early church fathers. And it was helpful. And then one day it hit me, I didn't know any of this stuff and God called me.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's not important. It's super important in how you live. But is it the determining factor for if you become a Christian or not? No. It is helpful, but it's not decisive.
Well, God has brought thousands and thousands and thousands of people to new life and true faith through the ministry of the AME. And there have been lots and lots of faithful pastors.
Yeah.
They may have not put some things the way I would like them to put them, but they're preaching Christ and Him crucified.
Yeah, it's not heretical. You get a lot of law. You get a lot of law. You get a lot of works. And that has effects on how you live and how you view the world. This is all true. But I wanted to come home and I felt like if I had been there, if my generation had stayed, it looks different. So I come back to a church that's gray. That's like when I grew up in AME church.
When you say gray, you mean old.
Old. And so when I grew up, I went to Allen University, was one of the first colleges I went to, named after Richard Allen in Columbia, South Carolina. And you go to AME churches in South Carolina because the AME church, as I was saying earlier, went from being a northern church to a southern church because of Henry McNeil Turner, and who was born in Abbeville, South Carolina. And wherever you went, it was just tons of kids and young adults.
Yeah.
The AME church, you just were lots of young people everywhere all the time. And I come home and I start going back and I'm looking at different AME churches. There are no young people. They're gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of churches that were thriving are struggling. The physical locations are struggling, right? There's many different factors that have happened.
You've been writing about this.
Yes.
It's very interesting. So, listener, if you don't know Southern California, if you haven't been here, haven't lived here, you're looking at television and maybe you have an image of Los Angeles. And if I say South Central or Watts or whatever, you have an image of what it might look like or what you think it might look like. It doesn't look like that anymore.
No.
The demographics have changed dramatically. The Black community that used to live in South Central is now living in Riverside County and in Victorville.
Living in Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana.
Right. So part of the great exodus out of California is the Black population leaving the state.
Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing?
So there's been a reverse migration. No one has written about it. I mean, someone should write about it. Blacks migrated west during
to be free.
First World War and the Second World War, especially.
Now they're leaving a blue state to go to red states.
Yeah.
For economic opportunity and for freedom.
Yeah, better schools.
Better schools.
Everything's better.
I mean, the schools in Mississippi now are far better statistically. If you are a poor Black child in Jackson, Mississippi, you are reading at grade level, which is not true in California.
No.
And California spends a ton of money on the schools, and the chances are they're talking to your kid about becoming trans more than they're talking to your kid about phonics. And Black families are going to put up with that. And what first chance they get, out they go.
Yeah, I have a couple of cousins working as teachers in LA Unified.
Yeah.
I will not tell their stories here on this podcast.
Only to protect them, yes.
To protect them and just protect your listeners too, because they'd be like, that's not true. And I'm telling you, it's incredible what's going on.
There's a couple of Twitter feeds. One was Leave Public Schools, and I don't think that one's as active now. And it's sort of been succeeded by a woman named Orietta Rose. And she sort of picked up where Leave Public Schools left off. And that is they document all the particularly sexual crimes by public school teachers and employees. I mean, actual real news stories and police reports. And this is what, and I've been following this now for a few years. You're not going to believe me, listener, but this is true. Every single day in America, right, work day, some teacher or staffer, and I've seen this for myself, in the public school is charged with some kind of violent or sexual assault against a student in the United States of America. It's a huge crisis, and nobody wants to talk about it. There's a little bit of attention being paid to it. It's come up on a news network here or there, and there's stories that occasionally come up. And there's some interest at the federal level in looking at this. But what's going on in the public schools is damaging and disastrous. And by the way, please don't tell yourself, well, I'm sure that's just happening in the big cities, the blue cities, and those districts. I'm sure my district is fine. No, your district isn't fine, because the same schools, the same colleges, the education departments that produced the teachers doing wacky things in the blue cities also produced your teachers. And they're doing and teaching some of the same stuff. And sometimes, and I see this in my hometown, Lincoln, Nebraska, where people want to be perceived as sophisticated, they overcompensate. And things can be worse in red state public schools in some respects than they are in blue state public schools because of that overcompensation factor.
Yeah, it's very bad. So I would tell people, and I have told people that I know, don't live in the state, and they think they're going to come here and visit, and they want to see Compton or Watts or whatever. And I'm like, why? Do you want a taco?
Exactly.
Because you're not going to get any catfish. It's not what you think it is. That's done. That ended 30 years ago. That's done.
Yeah.
And that had an effect on the churches.
Yeah.
Just speaking for Southern California, there's other things going on nationwide, but if the families all moved to Texas to get work, what's left in your neighborhood? So what you are left with are churches who are older, skew older, retirees, pensioners, public employee pensioners, which is very important to consider.
CalPERS.
And maybe their grandkids are around, maybe not. And the financial resources go, and the churches suffer. And no one raised their hand to say, since we have access to all these politicians, since they come to our conferences, they come to our annual meetings looking for our vote, why didn't we use our leverage and say, well, you want our vote? Well, we need to keep our jobs. We need to keep our neighborhoods. Horrible things happened to Black LA.
Yeah.
Horrible, violent things happened. People were evicted, not only say by a landlord, but, you know, you get certain gangs, you get certain elements in there, and Black people were literally being killed in the streets of their own neighborhood. Like, get out. I mean, if you're at a gathering of Black folks in Inglewood or LA or somewhere, it comes up.
Sure.
I was at a gathering of Black folks in Dallas, Texas a few years ago, and there's 20, 30 people there, and everybody was from LA. And we were all sitting around talking in Texas about what had happened in LA.
Yeah.
And what the problems were.
And there's a lot of white folks that used to live in LA who now live in Texas having the same conversations for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Or at least analogous reasons.
Yeah. So it's really damaged the church. And then, you know, I'll be a God to you and your children, right?
Yeah.
And we lost that. Not that God lost it, but that we stopped
believing in the promise of the covenant.
Stopped bringing our children along with us on the ride. Or when we left, we kind of, you know, in my case, I would say, I wanted my kids to have what I didn't have in terms of understanding theology systematically. I didn't have that.
This is the Heidelcast.
One of the things you've done in your writing is to push back on the narrative of the collapse of the Black family. In other words, you've pointed out, well, look at some of the statistics about white families, and and you've made that narrative a little more complicated, intentionally.
Right. If it was a disaster, so the Moynihan report, for you young folks out there, Patrick Moynihan is an influential congressman from New York.
Senator.
And he did a Moynihan report on the state of the Black family, state of Black America, how horrible it was. And this was
1964.
Right. This is why we need to pass the Civil Rights Act. This is why the Voting Rights Act is what it was called. This is why we need to do these things, right? And the scandal was 25% of Black children were born out of wedlock, right? 25% was a national disgrace and a national emergency.
And we would take that today in a heartbeat, right? If somebody said, hey, we can get that down to 25%.
If you could get it down to 25% in the white community.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So if it was a problem for us, why isn't it a problem for everybody once you pass this number?
Yeah.
And so family formation, intact families, good policing, good municipal services, clean water. Why are those Black issues?
Yeah.
That's what I push back against. Like, why am I going to approach having a good school as if only Black people? How did that get to be a Black issue, right?
Yeah. These are American issues.
Correct. And we're Americans. You know, a lot of that comes from how I was raised. A lot of that comes from being part of the AME church. This is my country. I'm a citizen here. What I do matters. My rights matter. I have a stake here. And what I've seen is really accelerated somehow during the Obama years, I think, where like, no, we don't really have a stake here. This is white folks this, white folks that. And it bothers me.
Yeah, I think that's a transitional period.
Yeah.
Right. The first Obama administration, and then and I think particularly the second, where a whole series of ideas and ideals were essentially overturned. I mean, just basic things like discipline in the schools. You can't discipline because that's racist. We can't teach phonics. The Clinton administration had shown, hey, everybody needs phonics. And the Obama administration killed phonics. As a consequence, I have kids that I'm teaching who don't know what phonics is. I'm having to talk to them about get the adult version of Hooked on Phonics so that you can look at words and sound them out. Listener, you may not understand the terrible damage that's been done, you know, to education and a whole series of cultural institutions in this country since, 2008. If it wasn't intentional, was it well intended? I don't know. I can't tell. But the consequences are pretty clear now.
Yeah, intentional or unintentional becomes impossible to discern at this distance because it all looks the same and you get the same result. So the AME Church is the first institution built by black people.
Yeah.
For black people.
How is it now? What's the state of it? I mean, how healthy is it?
Not very. From what I can see, I know I'm going to do some traveling, Lord willing. I'm going to check it out in different parts of the country. But here, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
In terms of numbers.
I mean, all the mainline churches are gray. You know, the interesting thing is NAPAR churches are re-inhabiting the churches they gave up 100 years ago. Literally, because the mainline churches are now too old, too small to sustain those buildings anymore, and they're having to sell them.
So there's still some energy in it. And there's still the political connection in it, even though we don't use the leverage the correct way. And for me, I'm a small C conservative, and I want to maintain the institution that did so much good for us. And one of the things I wrote recently, I tried to explain to people, in your mind, you're thinking of black politics in the protest era. You're thinking King, you're thinking Douglas, you're thinking all Booker, whoever, you're thinking protest era. Well, the protest era was housed in the black church because really you weren't going to do politics outside the church. You weren't going to do insurance or finance or banking or anything outside of your community. You just weren't. And so the black church catechized black politics. The black church housed the protest movement and gave it a moral language, a moral Christian language to speak. So that's what you're thinking. We are now in the black political era, which is different.
Which gets us back to 2008
which is
and some
ideological.
Yeah.
It is not moral. It is ideological.
And it's divorced from its Christian roots.
Correct. But it still tries to use the Christian language or imagery to advance an ideological, a very narrow ideological aim.
Yeah.
And so it tries to, it wears that mantle or that mask to disguise what it really is. And the black political era is heavily skewed to far left. I'm talking about, and when I say political, I mean the professional types. I mean the academics, the actual politicians. I'm not talking about your neighbor. I'm talking about the paid ones.
Yeah.
And it's been completely captured ideologically. And so they try to gain credibility inside the community by bringing up the imagery and the language of the protest era. To try to maintain some moral base. Black people are not down with men in dresses punching women or going into women's spaces. We're not. I'm going to tell you that. And so you would be confused by, well, there are black politicians who seem to be signing up for this. Yeah, there are. And they use the prior era to steal bases now.
I mean, BLM doesn't really represent, right? It's fundamentally a radical leftist, sexually progressive entity that isn't really grounded in the traditional black community.
They make all their money, or they made their money from corporations. They made their money. And I hope no one's offended for me talking like this, but I'm just using shorthand.
It's kind of astroturfing in a way.
They made their money from white Americas. They weren't getting $6 million homes in Beverly Hills from black folks.
No.
That's not where that money was coming from.
Were they actually accountable to the black community?
It would look different.
Yeah, some of this stuff wouldn't have happened.
No.
So I have another question. You recently wrote about Jesse Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting. And, I'm 64. So I've been sort of watching Jesse Jackson for a very long time. I remember the picture of Jesse leaning over, right, Dr. King's body on the balcony at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis in April of 1968. Then the press conference wearing the same turtleneck, right?
Yeah.
For effect. Mm-hmm. So he's been a part of my experience of my life for a long time. So his death gives us a chance to sort of reflect. And I was wondering, as you were describing the sort of replacement of the protest era with the political era, can you map Jesse's trajectory on top of that?
Yeah. So Jesse was one of the last from the protest era.
Yeah.
One of the last. And what he attempted to do was to bring the protest era into the political era. He tried to, who's going to be the head and who's going to be the tail? And he tried to keep the protest era as the head and the political era as the tail. He wanted the politics to answer to the moral.
Did he succeed?
He did not. He was opposed. So when Jesse runs in 84, he's opposed by other black pastors. Like, hey, number one, you're not ahead of us. It's not your turn. Two, Jesse kind of got the side eye for a long time, especially from my parents' generation, what you're describing, where he literally has king's blood on him at the press conference and things like that. And it's like, what's this guy really about? There's a book people should read called The Plot to Kill King. It was written by James Earl Ray's last attorney. Very interesting things in there about Jesse and maybe his role with the FBI, allegedly.
In 1973, Jesse Jackson is pro-life.
So Jesse Jackson comes through our lives in the 70s and into the early 80s as still this anachronism, basically, even at that time.
He's kind of, in a way, an old school civil rights, black preacher, up with hope, down with dope, keep hope alive, I am somebody. Mm-hmm. But by the time you get into the 80s, and he runs for office twice, and he does remarkably well in the 80s, that's not really the Jesse Jackson we're seeing now. And now he's pro-choice.
Yeah. So 84, he runs. He has some success, right? And he is opposed. He's opposed by the Democratic Party. He's opposed by other black pastors. He's opposed by the black mayors, the power.
Coleman Young.
Yeah, Coleman Young.
Andy Young.
Harold Washington in Chicago and Coleman Young in Detroit.
Okay.
Were the two main. Were like, no, you are not calling the shots. The politicians call the shots now. The protest movement got us to the point where we have political liberty, and now we'll take it from here. We'll call the shots and use you.
So this is the politicians telling the preachers, black politicians telling black preachers, your day is over.
Correct.
You guys used to call the shots and set the rules. That's done.
Right.
We're in charge now.
Right.
The reason I was thinking of Andy Young, he's a minister, but also mayor of Atlanta and one of the early major black politicians along with Coleman Young. Where did Andy Young come out? Because he always struck me as kind of an old school civil rights guy, but then his relationship with Clinton is really interesting and complicated.
So he has some relation to the SCLC and King and all of that. Southern Christian Leadership Conference, that's SCLC. But mainly Andy is in the political world.
Okay.
I would put him 90-10 political to the protest movement. Jesse's 100% protest movement. That's like, nope, I'm bringing this train. I'm bringing this train forward. Nope, that wasn't the last stop. I'm going to keep going with this, and we're going to have this moral political movement. It's going to come out of the protest movement, and I'm the leader of it because I'm the natural successor to King. And so those were the first hurdles he had to cross. And if you're going to be in the political world, you're going to be a partisan person. You're going to adapt the platform of your party. Now, I don't know. I never met Jesse. I've met people who know Jesse, worked with Jesse, but I never met him. So I don't know his real political beliefs, whether he was ever really pro-abortion. Did he ever really jettison pro-life? Because if you remember the Terry Schiavone case in Florida, he was all over that in terms of life, keeping someone alive, right? I don't know where he would have landed, but I know his public statements, and that's what he's judged on. So he's an anachronism. He is shut out. And in 88, I mean, he came very close in 88. And I'm not going to give away everything I wrote because, you could go subscribe if you want to read it. But, in June of 88 in the California primary, it was pretty much done and dusted. He really was kind of a long shot. But the very first vote I cast was for Jesse Jackson in the Democratic primary in 1988. No, November I voted for Bush. I was done with the Democrats. But I voted for Jesse for a couple of reasons. One, the protest language was familiar to me based on how I was raised and where I grew up. And also, Jesse came to Southern California. I didn't get to go to any of his rallies, but I got to see them where, I'm a young guy and you're a young boy and you're hearing this man say, you are somebody, you're worth something. Your circumstances aren't going to determine who you are. It was just so.
And that's an old school message.
It was so charismatic and fulfilling and uplifting. I couldn't wait to vote for him.
Was he ever a gospel preacher? A real substitutionary atonement, come to faith in Jesus? Because you could find that in Daddy King and in some years. And
you can see it. I believe he was a Christian.
Yeah.
I think he would infuse that in a lot of his speeches. So, I'm not here to make a brief for him and his political views. His passing is significant because
It's the
of what he represented. And then Obama supplanting him fully and firmly, and Jesse's famous quote about cutting off
Exactly.
Obama's testicles.
Obama basically blocks him out.
Locks him out of the White House.
And so he's out, he's done, and he's now, on corporate boards and that sort of stuff. But his years as a force in civil rights and the sort of even the black religious community, all of that changes. And ultimately, he just kind of disappears. He fades away remarkably.
His success, though, in 84, especially in 88, though, was outside the black community.
So the black pastors weren't crazy about Jesse.
They were not. I do challenge people sometimes. Go back and read like some of Jesse's campaign speeches, 84 and 88. I have actually done this with people. I've like in an old blog I had people like, hey, who said this? And I wouldn't say who said it. And I did have people guess it was Trump.
Yeah.
It was Jesse.
Yeah. On stuff like immigration and trade,
labor,
tariffs.
Right.
And all that stuff used to be sort of standard Democrat politics.
I like to say about Trump, white folks found their Jesse Jackson.
Well, that's kind of right.
They're closer together than Trump is to anyone else in the Republican Party.
He's the voice of the working class, remarkably. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Episode. But so what I don't think a lot of people understand is that for a long time in the black church, you could go into a black church and you would hear, if not deep preaching, but you would hear gospel preaching.
Yeah.
One of my concerns is that as the church came to be to a significant degree co-opted, so that you have, Hillary Clinton or whomever in a pulpit, affecting a terrible, accent, insulting.
Yeah.
That the black church becomes.
So here's the problem that the black church, and this is all of your Christian nationalist friends.
That's where I was going.
They should pay attention. The black pastors are the elite in the black community that's closest to the people.
Yeah.
Traditionally, that's who they've been. They've learned the Greek, they've learned the Hebrew, gone to seminary, they have advanced degrees. And they are the closest to the average dude, the black pastor. That was his credibility. That was what made him valuable. As the political movement has swallowed the protest movement and has started to swallow the church, the black church lost credibility with the black masses. Yeah. You'll see the prosperity preachers have made great inroads, unfortunately, because they're seen as independent. They're not seen as on team blue.
Okay.
They're not trying to hustle me or sell me something. They are, but they're not seen that way.
Hence a T.D. Jakes, who's
correct,
not historically, as far as I know, an Orthodox Christian. He's a oneness Pentecostal,
right.
And yet he's becomes a major figure, a television host and so forth.
It's all part of the materialism that exploded because you could afford to be a materialist now in the black community. And so they served that need or that desire, I should say, that hunger for that. They served that, and a lot of the black church energy has gone towards them. But as the church became like, okay, well, we'll join the political parade, it has lost its influence in the community. Because I like to say, look, I went to church with Christian nationalists. All the black people I know are Christian. We're the OG. We're the original Christian nationalists. You guys aren't telling us anything, right? Cornel West's father or grandfather had a huge Baptist church in Tulsa that my grandparents attended.
Oh, interesting.
Right? There was a question that Cornel got asked, a political question. He goes, I'm here because of my mother's prayers. That's it.
Yeah.
It's Jesus and my mother's prayers. Cornel's a Christian. Now, is he the Christian prince y'all are looking for? No, it's not. So it's really not about the Christian part, is it? So,
well, and the guys that I'm reading, the ethno-nationalist, white Christian nationalists, they wouldn't want to have anything to do with Cornel.
So I've met Christian nationalists, and they're not the ones that these guys would want to run with. But these are deeply moral people who feel like the United States government should operate as a moral entity. Now, we can pick that apart, but I'm just telling you that's the heart of it.
Yeah.
That's what informed the protest movement. The biggest, I don't want to say favor, but one of the most positive things the black church did for America was catechize the protest movement so it did not become a revenge movement.
Yeah.
The reason the streets didn't run with blood in this country is because of black Christians, because of black pastors, because it wasn't about revenge, because vengeance belongs to the Lord. You'll hear that in black churches still to this day. And you have to love, you have to forgive, there's redemption. All of these things became the themes of the protest movement. They were going to redeem America from its sin.
Yeah.
They weren't going to burn America down. They weren't going to condemn America. They weren't going to leave America. They weren't going to kill all the white folks. They were just going to bring America back to Jesus, basically.
Yeah.
And these are the Christian nationalists I grew up with. So I laugh when I read about all, your detractors and all their Christian nationalism. I'm like, this is some weak tea, because we can get, like, even still at an AME convention, at our big quadrennial meetings every 4 years, we'll get elected officials at ours. They'll come and pretend like, they're with us or whatever. Like our annual conference in LA, Mayor Bass will come. Maxine Waters will come. Yeah. Stacey Abrams will come. Yikes. Y'all can't get one elected official to come to yours. So don't tell me you can't even get the nationalist part right, because nobody's even going to want to be seen with you guys. We could snap our fingers and have Jim Clyburn or whomever we want at one of our meetings. And a lot of them go to AME churches. So that's not the route to take, though. And my thing coming back to the church was, the church could have used my resources. The church could have used my experience, the things I know how to do. So here in the dying light that I have remaining, I want to employ it where it's needed. I'm not here to win any theological fights. I'm not here to argue somebody into why women shouldn't be pastors. I'm not here to argue anyone into any particular view. I'm here to serve. I'm here in the capacity that I'm allowed to serve in, that I can serve in. I'm here to support. I'm here to give direction or guidance where I can, and, try to bring some pride and some honor back to what has been a significant and great institution in our community. And its influence is missing. It really is.
It's not like you're unwilling to talk to people about the Reformation or...
No.
And it's not as if you're not hoping.
I'm not hiding anything, but I'm not looking to like, well, hey, you know what? Let me tell you, you're wrong about that. And this is what we should start doing. I'm not here for that. If I'm called upon to pray, if we want to talk about some things at a Bible study, I'll give my view, right? Yeah. Because you never know where that goes.
Because theological and spiritual renewal is really important.
It is.
In every church in America, including the Black church, right? It's too important. I mean, obviously, you don't want to just say, socially, but for the soul of Black America, the hope of Black America ultimately is the gospel, right? It doesn't end there, but without the gospel, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And in order for the Christian life to return to Black America, it's got to start with the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ.
So what is absent? I don't think Christianity or the gospel is absent from Black America, but what's absent is the confidence that we had.
Yeah.
Like, you answer to us. The church is the center of this community.
Well, no church has that confidence anymore, right?
So we don't have it. And I look at it, I read I read through de Gaulle's memoirs, and what struck me was when de Gaulle said, metropolitan Paris surrendered, but the empire didn't surrender. And so I'm going to rally the empire. We're still in the war, right?
Yeah.
Those guys over there surrendered. I didn't surrender, right? And we still have armies and navies around the world that didn't surrender. So we're going to fight. So I look at it in that light. Some folks have surrendered, but not all of us.
Yeah.
And I want to, whatever small way I can, hey, here's our history. Here's our tradition in our church. Here's who we have been. This is who we are. Let's get back to that. Let's not run from that. Let's not be ashamed of that. Because one thing that has happened that you would never have seen, and one of the disgusting things about Hollywood is Black pastors are portrayed as,
buffoons.
The worst, the buffoons, at best as buffoons, but as predators. But it did not used to be a thing with us.
No,
and it is now.
Yeah.
And it's...
White pastors get portrayed.
You guys, you guys are killers, rapists, all kinds of terrorists.
Now, if you're a priest or a rabbi, you stand a chance of of being portrayed, in a positive light. But if you're depicted as a Protestant, I never watched this, but I'm told that one of the characters in Seventh Heaven was the dad was some kind of an evangelical pastor. That was probably the end. That last one. You go back in the 50s. And you look at pastors, Black and white, when they were portrayed, Protestants, they're portrayed respectfully as significant figures in their culture. So there's a real symbolism there about the church and its place in America.
Yeah. So it's not that theology is important and having the right view of who Jesus is. That's essential, right? So when I say I'm not here to have arguments, I'm not here to run from them, but I'm not leading with that. I'm leading to like, where can I fit in and let's get this thing going? Like, let me remind y'all who we are. So the AME Church has a publication called the Christian Recorder. It's the oldest publication produced by any descendants of Africa anywhere. They've taken it totally digital. And I remember it being paper. You know, we have all kinds of assets out there that we are not employing because we're not thinking of them correctly. I see what I'm doing is like, let's start taking inventory of our assets and let's start deploying it and let's start being confident in who we are. Let's start speaking up again and not speaking up on behalf of, you know, Pharaoh. Just because it's a blue Pharaoh, it's still Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Right? We're not here to be part of the Pharaoh party, either side, red or blue. And let's regain our voice and let's regain our footing. And it has to be done financially. It has to be done spiritually. It has to be done in many different ways. And so that, I felt like there needs to be some return on investment. People invested a lot on me when I was coming up. They did a lot of their time, a lot of their money, everything in me. And I look back and I go, you know what? I didn't return that. And it's time to do that. And, you know, so that's why I'm here.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Wendell Talley for joining us on the Heidelcast. Join us next time as we continue our series,
Have This Mind.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or in any podcast app, or find us on YouTube at Heidelcast. Don't forget to check out the Heidel Shop at heidelblog.net/SHOP. And don't forget to check out the Heidel video page, heidelblog.net/Heidel video. Email heidelcast@heidelblog.net. Call or text the Heidel at any time at 760-618-1563. That's 760-618-1563. Or send a voice memo to heidelcast@heidelblog.net. Remember, the Heidelcast may be cheap, but it isn't free. When the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks.
Copyright 2026. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
This is the way.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey.
Let's be careful out Good night, Chet.
Nothing is over until we decide it is.
Silence! I kill you!
I'm out of here!
We're a little late. Good night, folks.
Well, Gracie, say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash. We're heavy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building.
It's the end of the program. Roy Knapp is at the chimes. Good night, all. We'll be with you tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Adjusting the Wayback Machine, Sherman and I were quickly on our way.
WGRT. Great radio.
Okay, would you believe Sidney Poitier has made it?
What's up, sir?
Where's the action, sir?
So sorry, sir. It slipped.
These kids have the tempo, the tenseness, the beat of today. If you want to reach them, better dig their world fast or they'll break you. To Sir with Love. A movie as fresh and frank as today about London's turned-on teens and the teacher who had to make them cool it and call him Sir. Sidney Poitier is Sir in James Clavell's To Sir with Love from Columbia Pictures and Technicolor.
Sir with Love starts Wednesday downtown at the B&K Roosevelt Theater.
Okay, so they don't call you Sir in Mississippi, so you gotta go and be a movie star in order to make it?
WGRT Chicago. A great new one with more great news out of.
What is it they call you in Mississippi?
This is Bob Alexander with Grade 2020 News at 12:20. A guard at the McCulloch's Hotel, located at 66 North Clark Street, was fatally shot this morning when he struggled with an intruder on the roof of the hotel. A suspect was seized a short time later. Bob Alexander for WGRT, first in Chicago with great 2020 news.
WGRT plays my song.
That's Wicked Picket there, Funky Broadway. 25 minutes after 12 o'clock, high noon in Chicago. You're aboard the Evans Happening, and everything is
Great Star Tell with WGRT. Miss Isidore. All day, every day.
Okay, with the tax bite for the moon program, everybody's ruling planet is, you know? Little editorial comment, just thought I'd throw it in. Well, forget about it. The next 15 minutes brought to you by CET, where you can buy color TV, excuse the expression, for under $300. Call CET at Mohawk 44100 for full information.
I'm stopping now.
The best podcast, the Idlecast.